Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We all know being a parent is a tough job, even under the best of circumstances. Earlier this week, U.S. Surgeon General called parental stress a serious public health concern. Dr. Vivek Murthy released an advisory saying that the work of parenting is essential not only for the health of children, but also for the health of society. He said parents are increasingly overwhelmed by the dizzying pace of the world, and he cites a July 2024 American Psychological Association survey that says a third of parents report high stress compared to 20% of non-parents. Well, tonight we talk about parental stress, what causes it, and what parents can do about it. My guests are Charlotte Avery, family strategist, wife and mother of 7 children, also Carol Muleta, parenting strategist and founder of Parenting, the Parenting 411. She and her husband are also the parents of 2 adult twins. Whew. Ladies, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carol, for having me and having Carol. I'm just happy to be able to hang out with both of you all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And hopefully one of your children doesn't decide to photobomb this interview.
I think that can happen.
So listen, according to the American Psychological Association study, since 2013, parents of children under the age of 18 have been consistently more likely to report high stress than others. This is based on a very simple scale of 1 through 10, where high stress is rated as an 8, 9, or 10. Real simple. But Carol, I'll start with you. Even I'm sure parents hearing about the Surgeon General's advisory, and they're probably thinking, duh, no kidding. So, what's new about parental stress? It's as old as parenting.
Right. Well, parenting has always been quite a challenge, but I think you cited that study as far back as 2013. And, electronics was still a thing then. And I really believe that with smartphones and technology, even before Zoom was the thing, the way to tune in, there's this expectation of employers and just people in our circle that you're available, you're on all the time. You should be able to respond. And so I think that has definitely added a lot of the pressure, even if, when you're a stay-at-home mom, people expect you to respond back to their text. They texted you, or, your phone calls. They know you have a phone with you, so they should be able to call you at any time. Whereas before, it's like, oh, I'll call when I get home, or I'll call when I get to the next place. You just didn't have this expectation. So I think that has definitely added to it. And then since then, of course, with the proliferation of social media and all of that has parents measuring themselves against other people that they see. And that's a whole nother part. I don't know if we'll get to that. But I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that is what has made it a lot more difficult. We can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Harold.
My apologies.
Okay.
Charlotte, I wanted you to think back to a point when you were a little girl. Children are very perceptive. They know when their parents are under stress. And now as a mother of children that really spanned, a broad age group, do you believe that the stress is the same that you've been under? Or, well, I don't know. As a parenting strategist, I know that parenting for you has just been a field of roses.
Oh my gosh. So the roller coaster that that I'm on with all of my children is really something. I mean, not too long ago, I was having a meeting, and it was brought to my attention that I have children, because my children are ages 20 to 10. No twins or anything like that. But my children, all of them, are in different stages of life. I have grown-agers, which, those are my college kids, the emerging adults. And then I have my high schoolers and my middle schooler and my elementary schooler. And it never even dawned on me when I was like having a conversation with my therapist, because I was like venting one day. And she was like, well, how many people do you know who have children in like every season of life, other than like my children are not toddlers anymore. They're not babies anymore. But even like the older they get, it's like, your kids get bigger and they have bigger problems. Right. And so it never changes. And so, knowing that I'm dealing with college kid issues now, and I'm dealing with, I have 4 girls and I have 3 boys. And the hormones, the everything. And now everybody is in a hormonal situation, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, does it ever end? And the reality of it is that it doesn't. When I was raised by a single parent. And, I know that wasn't difficult. I saw my mom, as she navigated, working a full-time job and raising my brother and also fostering children and all the things. And then I look at my life. And although I have the honor and privilege of working from home and doing some of the things that I do, the pressure I think that I feel in this day and time has elevated from the pressure that my mom felt, even though she was a single parent, because we didn't have technology the way that we did. The sphere of influence was completely different. The sphere of influence now is very, very broad. It's not just your parents in your household. It's your children's friends. It's the social media. It's the internet. It's all the things that come along with it. And then it's the falsehoods that we look at and we deal with. I think, Carol mentioned this, when you're talking about social media, when people are like, it's reality TV, when it's really not reality TV, you know what I mean? It's not the real deal. And so, yes, the pressure can be high. The pressure has been high. And I've had those moments where I have wanted to just run and hide. And I have literally run and hidden in my closet with a bag of gummy bears or an ice cream bar to get myself all the way together, because I was like, I'm about to have a flip out moment.
Wow. Carol, tell me about your flip out moment. You and your husband raising twin boys. When you think back, what was your most challenging time for them, or was there a kind of a seminal moment for you?
A seminal moment when I realized I need to get some skills and some tools. And that was when they were actually still toddlers. And I just found myself approaching every day like it's a fresh new day. And it depended on my mood. Some days I joked, some days I was the wicked witch of the West. And other days, everything was great. And I realized that I need to be consistent. They need consistency. And it's time to get some tools to kind of get things organized, get clear about what you want, what my vision for the children in terms of what I wanted them to learn and know. And so that was the moment. Actually, they were very young when I had that moment. And thankfully, they were very young so that I could course correct and really be consistent. Because I tell you, I can remember sometimes my husband would call from work, I'm home, and I'd say, well, it wasn't my finest hour.
Wow.
And something else I used to do too is at night, I would do this mental debrief and just think about how the day went, be a little bit more thoughtful about it, and think about what I can do next. Because that's the thing about children. They have these patterns, and until you kind of work them out, they're going to do it again. So you didn't handle the situation well on this one day. don't worry about it because they're going to push that, they're going to push that button. They're going to do something. So you're going to get another chance
Mhm.
to do better. And then when you respond consistently in that way, then your child will change as well, because it's a dance. They're
Yeah.
really responding to what we do as parents.
I'm thinking back for me, and I remember this really, really well. The 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 parenting life changing moment for me was the day that my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Mm.
Illness, health related issues
Hmm.
certainly are really times that test parents. And on that day, her mother and I just really, it was just an emotional struggle because
Hmm.
her mother and I are divorced, and it reminded us of the importance of co-parenting, because whether you were with the the mother or father of the child or what have you, parenting still goes on. And it really, really opened my eyes, and it was one of those serious kinds of situations. And just thinking about the stress that was involved, not only for me but for her mother and of course our daughter. And that was an eye-opening moment. And I'm sure Charlotte, with 10 children, excuse me, 7
You
children.
had
I've got
to
to
give
give you
I
3
got on
more.
purpose.
with 7 children spanning 10 years in age, even if 1 or 2 or 5 of them have the sniffles, it can be stressful.
Absolutely. I mean, in our house, germs are the gift that keeps on giving, right?
Oh,
But even like thinking about what you were saying with your daughter, so I have a daughter, and she has been a competitive gymnast almost her whole life. And a few years ago, before she graduated from high school, she had an incident where she ended up in the hospital, and in a wheelchair for almost 6 months.
mhm.
And the way that changed the dynamics of what we were doing. Because the thing is that when you're a parent, you're always dealing with the ebbs and flows of life and all the things, right? But the ebbs and flows are different from the person who is a parent or a mom and versus a person who is not, because your children, like, anything can happen at any given time. And I just remember the fight and flight for me was real. The level of advocacy, even though I've always advocated for my children, was real. But, sleeping in the hospital with her for like 4 days, and, my other children being here at home with my husband and wondering when I was going to be coming home, and all the doctor's appointments, all the therapy, physical therapy, emotional therapy, all the things. And I needed therapy because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are we really doing this? But, just also remembering that, God wouldn't give me any more that I could bear. But at the same time, I was like, I'm at the tipping point, and this is not a good situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I can only, imagine. And that again, that is that's more than the sniffles. That's, much more than, a skinned knee or even a broken arm. That was a very, very severe, life-changing uh, parental situation. I want to go a little bit deeper after the break, and we're going to do that in just a bit. But we want to remind our listeners and our viewers that you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm is coming up next. That's on WHUR. I'm Harold Fisher. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about handling parenting stress. My guests are Carol Muleta, parenting strategist, founder of the Parenting 411, and wife and mother of adult twin boys. And Charlotte Avery, family strategist, wife, and mother of 7 children. Let us talk a little bit about real life coping strategies, because we go through this long list of all of the things that can cause parenting stress, including, Carol, keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the other parents. How would you, now that your sons are 24, and you can kind of look back and talk about some of the real life coping mechanisms, and outside of running into a closet with the gummy bears and the ice cream?
Well, honestly, that is okay if you need to
Hmm.
do that every now and then. But
Hmm.
for me, and I think for anyone, tapping into it may be tapping into your faith, but becoming very clear about what you want, thinking ahead to the adults that you hope your children will become, and working back and thinking, what do I need to do now to make that happen? And that vision is based on your values, it's based on the experiences you have had, even as a child and as an adult. And most importantly, it's based on the children you have, not your sister's children, not your neighbor's children, not your best friend's children. And so when you can get back to that, then it really does help when you think in that way, and in terms of, the kind of wondering why other people's children seem to behave better, or why other people's children are excelling in this way and you feel that you're not, or another mom looks like she has so much time and she's so stress free. Really focus on what you are trying to do, and determine what kind of help you need, whether it's family, and be specific, because a lot of people around you want to help, but if you don't tell them what to do, then they don't know how to plan and they don't know how to get in there and really make a difference for you. But that is what really helped me. And, to just stop looking at other people. And in my case, I did have a son, have a son who had a diagnosis of developmental delays. So that also helped me to not worry about anybody else. I need to read
Mm.
everything I can. I need to go to every conference I can, or whatever, so that I can help him to be on the right course, because we know that early intervention is key. So I think when you focus on the children you have in front of you, that can really help a lot. And saying that, of course, I didn't have social media to look at, and all of these wonderful videos that moms are producing, but I did have real life mothers that I looked at and admired and wondered how they could do X, Y, and Z. But once I turned inward to my family and particularly to that son's needs, and working from there, that helped me to get focused, and that helped to reduce stress. I certainly had other things to worry about. I was concerned about him, but keeping up with other people and other people's judgment of me, that pretty much went away. And I think
Mhm.
that's very important in any age, whether it was before technology and certainly after. Focus on the children you have in front of you.
Charlotte, as a fan of gummy bears and coffee ice cream, especially the red gummy bears, um, I would imagine that, for you, after the oldest ones, maybe you and your husband, did you ever think that you got it right with the first handful of children, and then, well, I can just do this again for, child number 3, 4, and 5? Did it get any easier?
No, it didn't. It didn't get any easier. Well, yes and no. Let me just say this. As our children, as they get older and they become a little bit more independent, then, sometimes it got easier, here and there. But, I have some other children. I mean, because all of my children, as much as they're related, they have their own bent. And so, I'm like, okay, yeah, I raised my son this way and I've raised all of my children the same, but my oldest was the guinea pig. right? He was the oldest and he was the oldest boy. My daughter after him is the oldest girl. And so both of them are kind of like in the guinea pig trial and error things. And so for me, like it was a lot of course correcting and saying, okay, this is what worked and this is what didn't. And then, I was blessed to have other children that sometimes I looked at them like, who are you and who are your parents? Because I'm like, I know I didn't raise you. I know I didn't raise you like that. You know what I mean? But I'm thankful, for all of the different experiences and who they are, because as they're growing up, I'm growing up too. And I get to be on a different life. I get to be on a life journey with them. And so I really, really appreciate that. But seasons of better, I was just say there's seasons to this thing. You know what I'm saying? It really is seasonal because some seasons are easier than others. Some of them are more stressful than others. Some of them I'm like, whoo, I can breathe. And then just when I think I'm breathing real good, something else happens.
Yeah. And I can only imagine that, as you said, with each child being so different and trying to adjust to different personalities, how to resolve conflicts, all of those things can contribute to parental stress. Both of you fortunate enough to have participating husbands, but Carol, even under those circumstances, it's speaking for every man on the planet, sometimes we just don't do right when it comes to parenting.
Well, I think that most parents are well-intentioned. They don't intend to not do right, as you say, but you have to get on the same page about the big vision. Right.
Okay.
But you can't dictate what exactly the relationship will be. So agree on the bedtime, right? Or agree on the snacks. So that, say, when mom is away, has to do something and dad's home with them, if you don't want them eating certain foods or whatever, then honor that, be consistent. But that doesn't mean you all can't sleep in late, have fun. I mean, do other things that really help you build the relationship with your child, or the way you speak to them and all of that. Give your partner that opportunity to build the relationship the way that works best between them and the child, just as long as you honor the values and like that you both are on the same road, the same path to helping your child reach their full potential. I know that sometimes that is a problem because parents that I work with, they want, mom wants the dad to say things and do things exactly the way she does, because that's what works for her. And it doesn't have to be done exactly the same way as long as they get to the same place.
Yeah, so I would imagine when you come home from a meeting and you discover that the Cheetos are gone and you ask your husband and the boys what happened to the Cheetos, and they stand there and they say, we don't know, with orange goatees, that's a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's like minor. I mean, in the scheme of things, eating the Cheetos, but and I'm not going to say that things similar to that didn't happen. But again, as long as it wasn't on the as long as it wasn't something major, like me telling for example, telling a son that you're not going to be able to use the car this weekend because you haven't finished all of your assignments, or there's something around the house that you were supposed to work on, you didn't do it, so you're not going to be able to use the car to go do what you want. And then I go away, and then I come back home and say he's gone with the car. I mean, this never happened, actually, I'm going to be honest. But now that's big. I mean, that's a little bigger.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have to, let your partner know that this happened and this is the appropriate consequence that I think, and I'm going to need you to back me up on this.
Yeah, I got in trouble for something like that when I was a kid. I remember we were in a store and I asked my mother if we could get, the old, plastic scale models that you put together. And my mother said no. And so I went and asked my father. And he said yes and bought it for me while my mother was at another part of the store. And when they got together, I remember there was but I got in trouble. And even as a young person, I began to really understand the role that a child could play into creating an uncomfortable, stressful
Absolutely.
dynamic between parents. And they weren't mad at each other, they were mad at me.
Because you knew.
I knew.
Good for them.
You had already gotten an answer.
Exactly. And the same question for you, Charlotte. Talk to me about the husband or partner dynamic when it can be the best of times or the worst of times regarding parental stress.
So, in our household, we always say teamwork makes the dream work because, we birthed a team, we have 5 and 2 subs. And so, our thing is this, and I want to go back to something that Carol said, because this can work in a 2-parent household, and it can also work in a co-parenting situation. And the thing is that everybody has to be on the same bigger page. And it has to be the bigger picture for your family and your household and not somebody else's. So, for us, the rule is in our house, like if my kids ask me for something and I say no, and they go and ask their dad, they know that they're about to get in big trouble. They know that that's a no-no. And that has happened in our household. But there are times when I have been very just stressed and overwhelmed, and I have had to really communicate, because sometimes I used to communicate very negatively because I'm a recovering yeller. And so, instead of damaging the people in my household with my words and my tone of voice, I would have to really come to myself and say, you know what? I do not have the capacity to deal with this particular stressful situation right now. Therefore, husband, I am deferring to you for you to handle this, because I don't have the capacity to deal with that right now. And however he decides to deal with it, even if it's a way that I don't like that he dealt with it, that's just where the cards are going to fall. There's no argument about it. And even if we are, we don't agree, we don't disagree in front of our children or anything like that, because we go behind closed doors and we say, okay, I don't really agree with your tone of voice. I don't really agree with this decision you made for the children. But I never say out loud in front of my children that I don't agree with their dad. Because in our household, no matter how mad I am, no matter how upset he is, which is usually me the most time, but we are always a united front when it comes to our kids. And you can be a united front in a 2-parent household, and you can be a united front in a co-parenting household. It just depends on how you're trying, what it is that you're actually trying to do, and who these people are that you're trying to create and grow.
Carol, you said something earlier, and I want to drill down a little bit more about that. Did you ever feel pressure to be a perfect parent? And in your mind, what did that look like?
Definitely. Occasionally, I felt that pressure. Well-behaved children who didn't talk back. When you asked them to do something, they did it the first time. And I was always on time. The house was organized. That was perfection. That was pretty much the way I felt. However, that's not anything my husband told me I had to do. That's not anything really anybody asked me to do. But I was looking at what I saw other people, what they seemed to be doing, and wondered why I couldn't do it. But I came to realize that I was just looking at a snapshot in time. I don't know what they went through to create that particular scene that I was able to witness at that moment. And I don't know what effort goes into them maintaining things like that. I don't even know if that happens all the time. I just know it might have looked really good then. And So once I started, thinking like that, and then also recognizing that, as Charlotte said, that there are seasons to parenting, and just hunker down and savor the season you're in. And I do say savor because there are challenges, but there's opportunities for growth, and there are joys in every season. And I'm sure Charlotte would probably agree. Like, I miss my little boys. I told my husband that this past weekend. I was like, I miss those little guys. I even posted something on Facebook, a picture of them small. I really do. Of course, I'm proud of the men that they have become, but I'm glad that I was able to really learn and grow along with them, and really learn to enjoy those seasons and not wish them away, and just lean into them.
And see, that's another point, and I think this is really important because both of you ladies are public people, and that you are also, part of the town square discussion on parenting, and have to be really transparent about where your parenting lives have led you. And so, Charlotte, did you always think in the back of your mind that, I'm talking about parenting and how to do it and how it works? Have you always been concerned that, one of your children would upset the apple cart, so to speak?
Well, here's the thing. Like I have a few children who have, I guess, kind of upset the apple cart. But here's the thing, like,
Yeah, but they haven't ended up on my newscast. And
no, thank you, Lord. Hallelujah.
And that's what I need.
Praise God for that.
Yeah, no, hallelujah to that. But here's the thing, like, I realize this. One, I'm not a perfect parent. I understand that my children are not perfect either. No matter how I try to, mold and shape and make them into these people, they're not. And so even with my older children and my younger children, I can look back on my parenting journey and say there are a few things. One, I trained my children up in the way that they should go. And now my older children, I'm like, any decision or choice that you make beyond now is a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of me and your dad. So I can rest in that, knowing that I have really done the best I can, even when I have not been perfect. And here's the other thing. I just want to say this really quick. I think that one thing that would help parents to de-escalate some of their stress, if they would just be willing to take a pass. And
what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is this. Taking a pass means this. First, prioritize. Look at the things that you value and that are important, and what really are your priorities. Because there are some things that we do that really are not a priority. There are things that we want to do or we feel like we have to do. The other thing is this: assess. After you've looked at your priorities, assess them. Assess and really say, this is the most important, this is the least important, and decide how you're going to deal with that. The next thing is learn to say no. Learn to say no, because you can't say yes to everything. And guess what? Some of the problems that we have when it comes to parental stress are because, one, you mentioned it, we're trying to keep up with the Joneses. We have this spirit of comparison and all the things, thinking that, oh, this person has this. I don't have a nanny to clean my house. I don't have a housekeeper. Some people do. That's why their house is so clean. Hallelujah to the Lamb for them. That's not my story. So I might be a little bit stressed out. I'm glad that they don't have to have that stress. But realize that it's okay to say no, and your children need to hear you say no sometimes. Because sometimes as parents, we say, oh, I don't want my children to be upset with me or whatever, but that does not teach them their own coping skills. So learn to say no, and then learn to say yes to the things that are important. Because when you say no, that means that you can make space for some of the things that you actually want to say yes to. And then the next thing is say yes to yourself. Say yes to your emotional wellness, your spiritual wellness, and all the things. Say yes to the things that actually bring you joy, because we parents are the thermostat. And when we say yes to ourselves and we set the tone and the temperature our children will follow our lead and they'll say, okay, mommy's 30-minute time to herself is hers. And they find out that you value that time, and it makes them value that time, because then they are a recipient. They're recipients of the fact that now you have decompressed, you have found joy, and now you're a better you for them.
Question for both of you. I'll start with Carol. Is being a helicopter parent more or less stressful?
I would say it's more stressful, because honestly, you're in some of the things that your children, the challenges that they're facing, are really meant for them to figure out. So you're in some business you don't even have any business in. So it really is more stressful to do that. And honestly, if you kind of invest some time beforehand, really getting clear about the boundaries and talking with your children about it, letting them know what the goals are and what you expect, and allowing them to weigh in as well too, to talk about their goals, because they have them as well. So talk about that, and then agree on the way that you're going to go forward, and then little by little, you fade into the background. There's some things that you have to be with them side by side as they're learning, but then you kind of move back and let them take over. You're really evolving from hands-on manager to coach to consultant. Like, I'm a consultant now with my children. So just play your role in the season that you're in, so that you won't have to be a helicopter parent, and give your children a chance to make mistakes, low stakes mistakes, when you're around, so that you can help them course correct, so that when they're a little older and their mistakes could have more consequences, they'll be more careful. They'll have the self-discipline. Not saying they won't make any mistakes, but maybe there's some that you'll really be able to avoid, just because of allowing them to wrestle with tough situations when they're younger and figure their way through, even if it's not pretty, even if it's not the way you would have wanted them to do it. Let them spend their allowance on something foolish. Let them go ahead and do it, because it'd be better than say my 24-year-old buying something and spending some money on something that would have far worse consequences.
Absolutely. What do you think, Charlotte? Is it time for helicopter parents to land the helicopter, turn off the engine, and kind of let children develop, not completely autonomously, but not do the hovering?
So I definitely agree with Carol. And here's the thing. I think that there's a time and a place for everything, right? Because it's going back to seasons of life. I think that when you're really thinking about helicopter parenting, I realized, because I have been that parent, right? But I realized that one of the reasons why I was that way is because it was out of fear. It was out of fear that my children would make choices, or, their feelings would get hurt, or things that, could probably just, make them uncomfortable. Here's the thing. Like, our children, just going back to like saying no, our children need to understand that, it's okay for you to say no to them. It's okay for the world to say no. It's okay that, if they get a D in a class, that sometimes there's a time and a place to call school and set up a meeting. And there's a time and a place to say, well, did you study properly? Did you do whatever? Well, we have to deal with the decisions and the choices that we make. And if I could go back in time and redo a couple of things, there are a few situations where I would not have been the helicopter parent, because when I realized now in this season of my life that it stunted their growth, and they could have gotten somewhere quicker in their emotional maturity and emotional intelligence had I not stepped in. And I had been the coach, or, all of these different things, and not the parent that didn't want you to, to fall down and scrape your knee and, oh my gosh, whatever. And so, but I think that parents who are helicopter parents, they need to ask themselves why. Because for me, I think it's out of fear. I think it's, we don't want our children to make bad choices. We don't want them to have to live with like really bad consequences or whatever. But I mean, when they're 5 and there's certain ages or whatever, the consequences and the actions that they do are different, when until they get, they're in a different level when they get older. So if we don't teach them how to advocate for themselves now and use their voices now and go talk to their teachers now before we have to come in, and, all the things, then when they get to college, they're not going to know how to advocate for themselves and talk to the teachers, because when your kids are in college, they don't want to see you. They just want your money. They don't want anything to do with you as a parent. They just want
no
your
truer
money.
words ever spoken. Yes, I know. Final question in these last few minutes. As parents, we're always going to worry about our children, adult children and the like. We're always going to be concerned. But at this stage in life, Carol, is the stress less as a parent for you?
No.
Really?
Well, I'm sorry. I should have said it the opposite way. I'm not as stressed,
Right.
honestly, because I feel like they seem to have a good head on their shoulders. They kind of came back from that whole totally independent mode where mom and dad don't know anything, can't tell me anything. They are definitely now seeking my consultation and my husband's consultation. So I don't worry about them as much. They don't live in town. They don't live in the same town. So I really can't, I don't know what they're doing all the time. As a matter of fact, I was more stressed when one of them came home for the weekend and was going to hang out with his friends and everything for his birthday and all that other stuff. And, a lot of things had been going on in DC with the carjackings and a lot of things like that. I was more nervous when he came home that weekend than I ever am with him, hours away from me. So I just have to trust that what we poured into them, we may not have checked every box, but we really worked hard to try to prepare them for this. And I just have to trust that God will cover them and that they will remember some of the things that we said, the lessons that we tried to impart. Maybe we thought they were half listening. Hopefully they really actually were taking it in, because I know that was even my experience as a young adult.
Charlotte, I'll let you have these last 30 seconds. Are you less stressed than, say, you were 5 years ago, or is this still a work in progress?
It's still a work in progress, only because of the different seasons that my children are going through and where some of them are in life. So, I just try to embrace the beauty in the chaos of it all and just thank God for his grace and his mercy.
There you go. Carol Muleta, Charlotte Avery, thank you all so much. I think you both deserve a pat on the back.
I'll take it.
Yeah, go ahead and take it, and you can pat your husbands on the back later. But ladies, thank you so very, very much. Hopefully your insight and your advice can help some of our listeners. That is the Daily Drum for this Friday, August 30th. For News Director Renee Nash, reporters Millette Green and Bramante Bryant, I'm Harold Fisher. Good night and have a wonderful holiday weekend.